Tom Cruise is headed across the bridge. He's going to Nyack, New York. I know.
Yeah, well, let me tell you, Sean Stone's one to know. I'm just going to leave it at that. I mean, let me tell you. I tell you what, Sean Stone, I wish he'd tell you everything he's seen. Can you imagine what he's seen?
Well, I'm going to give you a little hint that the Harriman, I know that area like the back of my hand, and we've got our people all over that place, and there's no way that that kind of ceremony could have taken place in Nyack without us knowing about it. But a postman a long time ago from the Tuxedo Park, Harriman area told me, and I had no idea what he was talking about at the time, that that area was known as End of the Rainbow. Now, one of our guys hopped over the fence and got inside of the Harriman complex, and I described part of that to you. You could easily produce that inside of that area, and no one would know. Now, I'm going to tie in something else about Warren Boetticher and the theft of Warren Boetticher's stuff. We know that the New World Order globalists want to remove the property from the middle class and destroy the middle class and give the property to the elites. I believe that Mr. Warren Boetticher's stuff, they're going to find out that the judge probably has hidden real estate off of his financial forms and ethics forms, etc. Now, this got my partner murdered in New York, Sonny Shoe. He's got a blog spot that people can go to on the net. The guy that's produced that is not telling the entire truth.
Well, listen, here's the deal. You got to send me some info on that. It's too convoluted, sir. I don't know about that case out in Montana. I'm just trying to help a World War II hero veteran who's losing his house. For all I know, the trustee's a nice person, and he got set up by some people that brought him to the trustee. The whole point is what happened there is wrong. And we're investigating it. No, I hear you, but I appreciate your call. We're now going to go ahead and take one more call, and then I'm going to get into the news here, okay? Let's go ahead and talk to Brian in California. You're on the air.
Hi, Alex Jones. I wanted to say that Obama declared martial law a month ago under executive order blocking prosperity of persons threatening the peace, security, or stability of Yemen. In the second paragraph, it says, I hereby declare a national emergency.
Well, they do that every year. We've always, since 1933 in the War Powers Act, been under martial law. That's why I try to explain but a physical martial law is being slowly, incrementally turned up. That's why the Sergeant of Arms gets a visit from the White House every year. It's on C-SPAN. They say, we're here with a letter from the president. And then they declare the emergency. And then that's how the TSA sticks their hands down your pants. It's how the national security state does all this. So, yes, I remember covering that. And every year he issues a new emergency. I mean, this is what we live under, is emergency rule, COG rule, yes.
I think Ron Paul knew about it, and that's why he stepped down when he did, because it was about the same day that this came out that he stepped down.
Well, let me just expand on that, sir. Did you hear what I said? Since the War Powers Act, 1933, they declared a national emergency, and we never left it. That's how he could order, and I say it's an illegal order because it's fraud. Everyone turned their gold in, and they gave them paper back and then basically doubled the price of the gold in the next few years. The Firestone family got caught setting up dummy corporations in Europe to buy their gold back. Roosevelt declared martial law under the Reorganization Emergency Powers Act of 1933. And so Ron Paul stepped down because Ron Paul wasn't going to win the election. And I like Ron Paul. I like Rand Paul. They're good guys overall. I don't like seeing them go into more of a political mode when they were always the purists. It's not that I get mad if someone's political overall, if they've always been political. And I appreciate your call, sir. My issue was that I watched the letters going out to constituents and out to myself because I've given them both money. And it's like, we're still going to win. Get in there. Get the delegates. And I'm like, but then Rand comes on my show and says, yeah, well, now it's going to be Romney. And it is an honor to be considered for VP. Remember a few months ago. And I'm like, okay, I'm being polite. And then it's like, keep everybody going along. And then get right up to the point and say, okay, Well, remember, Paul made that announcement that he was no longer going to campaign in states. And they went, but that doesn't really mean we're dropping out. And I was kind of like, oh. I mean, it was like a double talk stuff. And I understand Ron Paul got run ragged. Ron Paul did thousands of stops. Ron Paul's got mainline Republican politicos running his operation now. And that's great. Okay, I just don't have to be all hot and bothered politically about the polls anymore. That's great. I agree with most of their votes. I even understand why Rand came out against GMO labeling, because he's always said the feds, he wants to get rid of the FDA. Notice they push all this poison on us. Special interest control it. He says, let the states do it. And we should do it at the states. And he's voted to not let the feds block states having labeling. Now, you can debate that and say, well, GMO's so bad, we deserve a right to know. And while we're going to have an FDA, they might as well demand labeling. I see that. I mean, I understand the thought process, though, of a libertarian purist to say, don't let the feds label it. But instead, the big companies are lobbying to have states not label it. So I don't have any ill will towards Rand Paul or towards Ron Paul. I just know the direction they're going, and I told you the direction they were going, and then you see their statements by their people that speak for them, you know, Jack Hunter and people, who just says, well, we want Republicans to like us, and we want to be liked, and we want to get mainline Republican support. Well, great. Hell, support NDAA, support endless war, support torture, support more prisons, support the drug war. If you want to make, you know, the so-called mainline Republicans like you, oh, okay, great. I just don't have to get into a worship fest over it. I'm not interested in having them on my radio show anymore. It's gone. I mean, I guess if they contacted us, which they have before to get on, I'd go, okay, and I'll ask them a few questions. And I'd try to be positive and say, hey, you're doing this, you're doing that. Rand Paul's doing a lot of good stuff, going after the TSA, you know, going after a lot of things. But the magic's gone. The magic's gone. And so that's great. That's good. And I hope the little political analysts they've got working for them have a great wedding with the GOP. I hope it's great, and they can all wear nice little white bridesmaid gowns up there. I'm not going to the party, okay? So that's all I have to say about that. I mean, I don't even want to get into Ron Paul. I hope people just don't even bring it up, okay? Because I'm glad I did what I did, kind of going wild a few weeks ago, because it was real, it was me, it's who I am. Because it's personal when things like that happen. But I mean, I'm glad I did what I did because it was real. But you know, the duality, I wish I wouldn't have gotten so angry, because it's just, what do you expect, you know? I realize I am a weirdo. I mean, I try to not compromise. You can't compromise with pure evil. And I understand why people do, and that's fine. I think it's a big mistake. It's more of a sadness. It's more of a sadness, and but it shouldn't get any of us down. Ron Paul's retiring, and Rand Paul is still a great senator when it comes to the Second Amendment and a lot of issues. And so that's great. It's just that we get mad and angry because it was so pure. And then it gives others that exaggerate and make stuff up about him excuses. Because I've looked into some of the stuff being said, you know, like Governor Walker's related to the Walker family. I looked it up. That's not true. Or, you know, Ron Paul is a Mason who wants us all to use drugs. I mean, it's just pure baloney. And you know, people then, oh, look how bad Rand Paul is. You know, he works for GMO companies. He doesn't want you to be able to label it. That's not why he did it. He says the feds don't have that jurisdiction. Get rid of it. And here it is. I've got all this news. I'm going to come back and hit Biden. It's a depression for millions and millions of Americans. BuzzFeed has that video. Wow, Biden occasionally tells the truth. And then I've got what I mentioned last week, is it dovetails with all this. Larry Summers, Washington Post, avoiding a global catastrophe. And then it says, big banks crafting living wills in case they fail. CNBC, they're getting ready to totally implode. Like Enron, they're moving the assets out the back door right now. All that bailout money you give them. They never intended to bail jack diddly squat out. And you got one of the biggest cities yet going bankrupt, Stockton to file for bankruptcy. Again, you can keep bailing it out. The money never goes to bail it out. The tickets the cops write don't go to prop it up. It all goes offshore. The plan is to implode. Remember, they told us 3 years ago that the recession ended, though even with the cooked economic numbers, it showed we've been in a depression. And as the depression gets deeper, well, now Biden comes out and says it's a depression for millions and millions of Americans. And now as they start hinting they're going to do QE3 soon, boy, look for gold to go up when they actually do that. They've been trying to hammer it down because it exposes the fiat currency. It is going to just exacerbate everything, and people on fixed incomes are going to really see their purchasing power shrunk. Now, again, I mentioned this last week, but it dovetails with this other news. Avoiding a global catastrophe, Lawrence Summers. This is the guy, more than anybody, who helped engineer the end of Glass-Steagall, the derivatives, the housing bubble, everything with Clinton. And he goes on to admit that raising taxes stalls the economy, but that they've got to have the money, and then basically says that Europe's going to implode, and the answer is rich people are going to have to belly up to the bar and save the global economy. But he means people making a few $100,000 a year and up, not the people controlling billions that are offshore. He says a Eurozone collapse would be an economic disaster that might define our era. Oh, really? You think so? But they admit now, this was in the London Telegraph last week, they want to collapse it into a banking union. So they're going to collapse it into something far worse. Now, continuing here, here's the new news today. The point is that, oh, we told you this collapse was coming and was engineered a decade ago, 5 years ago, told you what the cause would be, told you what their solution would be, and now they admit it all because it's a total plan. That's the key. People are like, well, yeah, we need troops on the streets. Things are collapsing, but it was planned, and they're never planning to get us out of it. That's from the Bilderberg sources. And this article, I've got to cover this more on the Nightly News or tomorrow because it's so important. CNBC, big banks craft living wills in case they fail. 5 of the biggest banks in the United States are putting finishing touches on plans for going out of business as part of government-mandated contingency planning. That's to move the assets out the back door that could push them to untangle their complex operations. You mean the derivatives, mortgages sold 20 times over, or houses you don't even own, you say you do? The plans known as living wills are due to regulators no later than July 1st. Man, we're getting close, folks. Under provisions of Dodd-Frank financial reform law designed to end the too-big-to-fail bailouts of the government. The living wills could be as long as 4,000 pages. That'll just be a scam that Congress then under law says they're allowed to engage in. J.P. Morgan Chase, Bank of America, Citigroup, Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley. To OSC submitting the first liquidation scenarios to regulators of the Federal Reserve. Got to love that. All those banks are shareholders in the private Fed. So they're the bosses are going to give it to the Federal Reserve that's their holding company. And then they're going to decide themselves in bankruptcy, which will include sucking us dry, holding us hostage, and then holding us hostage again, and then holding us hostage again, and holding us hostage again. And as all the cities and states go bankrupt. Aaron was showing me the latest numbers out of the comprehensive annual financial reports for California, where they've got 70+ trillion in liquid slush funds off budget, and then they, oh, you just heard me right. I mean, the numbers are just insane. They've been putting it in there for like 60 years, and then they claim they're, you know, $500 billion or something behind on budget. I mean, it's just the numbers. We're going to do a whole report on that soon. We've been posting some of the articles up there. But, I mean, this is all hiding in plain view, and I got to pull the numbers up. I'm going from memory. It's just totally insane. Yeah, folks. We're talking about 1.5 quadrillion worldwide, 1,500 trillion are the numbers we're talking about. And it's all right here. And then I've got other ones. Stockton to file bankruptcy will be the largest U.S. city to fail. Oh, and then this big article. He's on tomorrow. This just broke at Infowars.com. Whistleblower reveals plans to evacuate London during Olympics. Body bags. Infowars.com.
Thank you for listening.
It'll be on the Nightly News tonight.